and I am summarizing some of the negatives, the challenges, the profound fractures and violences that we are all gathered here today experiencing deeply and viscerally in our bodies, in our minds, in our intellects, and in our spirits. And I want to name those, and I name these with humility. I name these acknowledging the complicities of centuries of violent erasure of many peoples. And I name these with as much courage as I can muster, because we need courage, we need faith, and we need steadfastness even more than we need hope. Hope will come when we have exercised those other qualities. And first of all, I want us to pause for a moment and remember the many of our colleagues and students and future students who we have lost to the Israeli bombardments and the violence. "77 years, the Balfour Declaration in 1917, 1948, the First Intifada, the Second Intifada. No people should have to have that litany written in their intellects and their souls from generation to generation. No people should have to witness the erasure of the concepts that have held us together intellectually time and again. The questioning at every turn is a profound negative, and yet it sharpens our thinking and our resolve. No people, no scholars should be witnesses to 17 years of a blockade and to nearly 18 months of a live streaming of levels of destruction that we call unimaginable and yet know have been imagined, and have been imagined because scholars in institutions have enabled that imagination. This is not normal. This is a defining moment for the world, and this should never have been a defining moment. A challenge is the concept of sumud and resilience. A challenge is the destruction of the fabric, the human fabric, the torn and tattered garments, the torn and tattered bodies, the torn and tattered concepts, the torn and tattered members of our beloved diaspora, the torn and tattered political will. A challenge is the continual epistemicide and the difficulty of that word. A challenge is the erasure, the paralysis, the silence, and the many reasons for it, from paralysis to turning away. So many people who say they can stand it no longer. So many people who refuse to speak. So many scholars who have abdicated their responsibility to act as the critics and consciences of society. The profound physical and intellectual, emotional and spiritual nature of what trauma is as a demon that inhabits our bodies and changes the biochemistry of who we are, and particularly here for women, and I was recently speaking with UN Women, the heavy metals, the cadmium and the arsenic that have been dropped in the equivalent of more than 5 bombs dropped on Hiroshima, and which stay within the physiology of women's bodies in a way they do not for men. The challenge for the biochemists of finding mushrooms that can clean up the heavy metals. The way people have tuned out. The sheer levels of starvation. Our colleagues are starving. For over a month, no food has entered. For over a month, no medicines have entered. Our colleagues who are surgeons are operating without anesthetic. The normalization, the visitation beyond borders of the normalization. The universal narratives that have held us shakily, leakily, but which have often been sufficient to bring us to speak to one another are in pieces. Our donor-driven models are insufficient for, as we heard today, over 1 billion that is required. The losses still need quantifying. We believe, but we do not know, that there are over 4,000 people under the rubble. Our mainstream media, the stenographers, the failure of the journalistic training and the human rights training to hold many to account. We have the challenge of unprecedented quantities of rubble. Our language and our laws are also part of that rubble. And that is before we speak of the rubble that is the university systems that believe they were founded on human rights principles, and before we turn to our colleagues suffering in the occupied West Bank and in East Jerusalem. The problem of the enduring settler colonial project in occupied Palestine and worldwide. The problem that for nearly all of us in this room, this is voluntary work. This is work which comes from broken hearts and deep frustration and anger. And as a result of that deep frustration and anger, we have a hard problem that often we cannot speak to one another, we cannot hear one another, because our concepts and our ideologies and our systems are so entrenched that the space to pause and listen is a hard one, and our divisions are manifest, and they reflect many of the divisions across Palestinian society, which have been created deliberately. And this then takes us to what I believe is the heart of our problem, which is that our theories of education and for higher education need radically renewing, restoring and rethinking. This is indeed a moment where something might bloom in the rubble, where we have an opportunity to think beyond and despite the impossible challenges that face us. For even our language is being erased. Even our right to speak and think and teach is being erased in Gaza, in West Bank, in East Jerusalem, by the forces of violence. But the ripple effects of those forces of violence visit us wherever we do our work. And so it is, friends, that we come together to think despite this heavy burden we bear together of what we might do and what might be an agenda. Erin.
Very difficult to follow. We have some questions, questions and thoughts that we might want to dig into further tomorrow, which feel like they pale in comparison to the magnitude of the challenges now. But so I think the first is, how do we protect gains and prevent recurrence once some form of political settlement is achieved, right? And there's been a strong and righteous resistance to speaking about the day after, but it will come. And we do need to put our heads towards thinking about, within the rebuilding of the higher education sector as well, how do we work to ensure and to support Palestinians and Gazans in particular in protecting the gains, and how many more times are there going to be for rebuilding? It has to stop. So how do we ensure there's not another cycle of reconstruction and destruction, or another reproduction of colonial logic and systems? So that really has to be at the forefront, and it is happening in a number of the discussions we heard today. Much very innovative and incredible thinking about and action on the ground in Gaza to build resilient systems. So how can we get more clear and strategic about the phasing and prioritizing of needs at different, in the rebuilding of the higher education system? And there were numerous efforts to put different ideas on the table today, but again, can we get more specific and concrete about what is really needs to be the priority? Or hear from Gazans, what needs to be the priority in this emergency phase while there is an ongoing genocide? What then does it look like, 1 year down the road, 5 years, long term? And how, the infamous debates around the links between reconstruction and development, and how do we really work to ensure that that sustainability is embedded in everything that occurs? And then, related to this, well, does there have to be an overarching strategy or lead focal point? I mean, certainly there's a lot of debate around this, right? Historically, around coordination. I mean, it's a nightmare when international actors are involved, because they can create great confusion and fund multiple different things, at the same time, and just foster headaches, and it cause great burden for national actors and local actors. Maybe the answer is letting 1 million flowers bloom, which has some benefits, but it seems that there are really profound efforts on the ground, like right now, like the Emergency Committee, for example, that are doing great work. So the question is, how can existing efforts really be supported and built upon? How to address the elephant in the room, the ongoing genocide, the ongoing genocide, and the fact that the United States and much of Europe is not going to participate in a productive solution to this conflict. And how can initiatives such as the Hague Group and the Solidarity Movement, really be supported in ways that build on its strengths? In particular, how to protect academics and students globally to be able to resist. I mean, this has it's a global issue. right? I mean, it's no longer just Gaza. It's global, and it's affecting academics around the world, scholars around the world, and creating immense polarizations in communities around the world. How to focus support around those coordination bodies? Yes, really, I've already suggested, right? But I think that's really critical. How can we identify, and not create too many more initiatives that don't really dig into and support the things that are already working? So we just thought maybe it's useful to think about some key gaps and questions that could really help to try and focus and dig deeper tomorrow. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Every day since the 30th of January 2024, I've taken it upon myself to write a poem as an act of witness and as an act of documenting what my colleagues of 15 years in the Gaza Strip are experiencing. And my colleague Hola Badwan, who's here, and myself have recently published a book of that poetry, and there are others that are coming out. Today is the first day when I haven't written that poem on my own, because the listening to you has provided the very words of the poem that I am now going to read to you. So if you don't like what I'm saying, you wrote it. And it began with my colleague, Dr. Sultan. And one of the phrases that he said was, "Yet the Palestinians in Gaza are persisting in makeshift tents." And that word makeshift has given me the title of this poem, because makeshift means just make, do, and mend. It's something a bit held together. It's DIY. It might fall over in a storm, but it'll do. It's good enough. Like what we're trying to do now. Maybe it's good enough. It's not perfect, but maybe it's good enough. But makeshift also means make a shift. Do better. Ask better questions. Think with bigger concepts. So thank you, Sultan, for the title of the poem, Makeshift. I listened and I heard, Salam alaikum. Peace be upon you. I listened and I heard of a coalition of care, a group of friends rebuilding hope. I heard that hope is a muscle. You must practice and exercise it for it to be strong. I heard from friends who are here to listen deeply. I heard of Palestine, makeshift. I heard of Palestine stricken, you said, torn, you said, starving, you said, bleeding, you said, crumbling, you said, makeshift. I heard of Palestine, not a victim. I heard of settler colonial epistemicide. That's not very poetic, but it's in the poem, Makeshift. I heard that it should not be characterized as anti-Semitic to criticize or condemn the actions of the state of Israel. Makeshift. I heard of education as a lifeline, of education as life. I heard of steadfastness, of persistence, of humility. I heard of love. I heard that it is hell on earth, and I heard the drones in Gaza. Losses, losses, losses. It was makeshift. It is. I heard, allow me to stand. I am a woman. I am a teacher. I heard, I will study for her. I heard a new concept of education. I listened for student voices, and I heard them in the cafeterias of Palestine and on the beaches having picnics of the future. I heard of our sacred responsibility to the land, to its people. I heard the call to prayer. Makeshift, makeshift, makeshift. I listened and I heard, Salam alaikum.
Wow. I don't know why I wasn't expecting this. I should expect this, knowing that Alison is with us. But this is absolutely fantastic. A very wonderful way to round up the day. I think with this, we don't really need to take any more comments. And unless some of you feel you have something you must say, we'll bring this to a conclusion at a high note. And I thank Alison and Aaron for the summary. We still have the challenge of actually getting it all written down, or best even your notes typed up. Yes. And let me just remind you of our schedule for tomorrow, please. If you, again, look at your agenda, we're going to start sharp at 9 o'clock in the morning. And we have 12 distinguished speakers sharing their experiences all the way from 9 o'clock until lunch, with a short coffee break in between. And we will be covering some initiatives, because as you've heard, maybe when talking to others during the day, there are quite few initiatives around the region. So we will be discussing some of those tomorrow. And then again, at the same time as we did today at 2 o'clock, we will make shift and move to the workshops. But we won't only have 4 workshops tomorrow. We're going to have 5, because the interaction today with Gaza has inspired us and our colleagues in Gaza. It seems that the connection is working and we can have more of them speak. So we will be breaking into 5 groups, with another one broadcasting to and from Gaza. And that means 5 by 5, about 25 speakers. I think would be plenty of food for thought. And then we'll come back in the afternoon, the same as we're doing today, at about 4 o'clock. But for tomorrow, we have 2 hours where we want to come up with as practical as possible ideas moving forward. And it's not to undermine or to underscore, to underestimate the very important practical idea of a conceptual shift in the way we look at higher education. And I personally heard 2 sides today. One that talks about the very practical of reducing it all into digital, and in other words, mobile and accessible and easy to do and all this. And another which says, no, well, actually we are collectives of people who want to be together. And education is not just about internalizing knowledge and getting certificate. It's the experience you go through with the other, which I think in our culture, given our divisions also politically on the ground, it's a very important thing to do. So we will discuss those ideas, we'll discuss other practical ideas, and as we started the day, with the hope that we conclude with a coalition of the caring, a small group of institutions that can work together, keep this sentiment going, and very importantly, be prepared to contribute to the ideas of rebuilding, which will suddenly hit you, without you knowing where it started from. Suddenly there will be a lot of urgency on doing things. And if we're not prepared and we're not leading the way as the academic community, someone else will lead it on your behalf. And I think Gaza is not new to this. They've had that experience before. They know exactly what I'm talking about in terms of not being totally prepared in advance. So this is going to be our agenda for tomorrow. Tonight is a free night, so enjoy Doha. There are places that you all know about, we can recommend in Souq Waqif and elsewhere. We have started an attempt to see how many people would like to go on a group dinner, but I think not many signed up, so we'll just leave it up to you. It's a free evening, and we'll see you tomorrow, 9 o'clock, sharp, please, here to start our deliberation. Fadal Omar. Sorry, there's some comments.
Well, I am not a distinguished speaker at all, but since you've been talking about bringing more kind of action plans or like moving forward from Doha, so I have sent a paper of 6,000 words. This is my first question. Shall we get like a copies of these papers or not? This is one thing. But the second thing, that in Norway we have established a consortium, and I would be very happy to announce that in a proper way. And I can see that my workshop is actually in the afternoon tomorrow, not in the second one, which is talk about the international higher education institutions, yes, where actually I thought that would suit much more there. But we have some kind of ideas related to post-Doha, and would like to bring that into the table maybe during the day tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I hope everyone appreciates that there are only a small number of slots in the day that I can fit people in. Not everyone can be in the plenary, not everyone can be in the working group, but we're all equal. I mean, we've made our best effort to make sure that everyone is listened to and express your programs in the working groups. They will be gathered and brought back to the plenary as we did today. And we will do exactly the same tomorrow. And again, I'm very, very happy that our colleagues from Norway are with us. And as I explained, my attempt to formally get a Norwegian university on board were not successful, but your presence here is great. I'm sure in the future we will build on it. So please, don't feel that we've excluded anyone on purpose. And it's the same when we talked earlier in the morning. Someone said there are 23 institutions in Gaza. We can only bring a small number together. But we'll do our best, and we will continue to support each other. I think we can now bring today to a close, and I'll see you tomorrow, 9 o'clock. The earlier we start, the more space we get for people to speak. So if we all start at 9 exactly, that would be very helpful. And again, please join me again in thanking our translators and our technical team, volunteers, and Aya. Thank you very much.